members of the Senate and the House of Representatives in this joint public session to approve the report of the Joint Committee embodying the resolution of both houses proclaiming Honorable Ferdinand Bongbong Romualdez Marcos Jr. as President and Honorable Sara Zimmerman as Vice President of the Republic of the Philippines. Maraming salamat. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas at ang buong sambayanang Pilipino.
Ladies and gentlemen of the 18th Congress, Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr., the duly elected President of the Republic of the Philippines.
Honorable Sara Zimmerman Duterte, the duly elected Vice President of the Republic of the Philippines.
Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's everything you need to know as you jumpstart your day. I'm Charles Lejano. Malacanang offers the newly proclaimed President-elect and Vice President-elect a peaceful transition of power. Marian Enriquez tells us more.
The crowd cheered the Batasan yesterday as the country's next president and vice president were proclaimed. A warm applause greeted President-elect Bongbong Marcos and her wife Liza Araneta Marcos. Also present in the rostrum is their son Joseph Simon and BBM sisters Irene and Senator Amy. Aided by Majority Leader Martin Romualdez, former First Lady Imelda Marcos also went up to the rostrum to greet his son. The session hall of the House of Representatives was at full house to witness the proclamation of the 17th President of the Republic, even shouting his initials BBM. In a quick ambush with the media, Marcos Jr. thanked the 31 million Filipinos who believed in him and his message of unity. He also asked support from the general public as he prepares to assume the presidency.
I ask you all, pray for me, wish me well. I want to do well because when a president does well, the country does well, and I want to do well for this country.
For his sister, Senator Amy, Bongbong's win is a second chance for the Marcos family almost 4 decades after their father, former President Ferdinand Marcos Sr., was ousted, leading to the February 1986 EDSA revolution.
We're very, very grateful for a second chance, as it were, dahil medyo mabigat ang pinagdaanan ng aking pamilya. Talagang matapos yung 1986. Well, syempre yung nanay ko sobrang excited. Sobrang excited niya at tuwan-tuwa siya sa mga pangyayari.
Vice President-elect Sara Duterte meanwhile arrived at the Batasan with former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Marcos and Duterte even shared the hug when they saw each other. While President-elect Marcos went up with his family, VP-elect Inday Sara had her rostrum moment alone, joined only by Senate President Tito Soto, an opponent of hers during the vice presidential race. Mayor Sara has this to say after the ceremony.
Magtulungan tayo para sa isang bayan na mapayapa at nagkakaisa. Mahal natin ang Pilipinas. May God bless the Philippines. Daghang salamat.
Her father, President Rodrigo Duterte, did not attend the proclamation. He was in Malacanang, accepting the credentials of new foreign ambassadors. In a statement, the palace congratulates the incoming leaders and called on Filipinos to stand behind them as they embark on the challenges of leading a nation. The outgoing office of the president ensures a peaceful and orderly transition of powers to the next president. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
The spokesperson Ferdinand Marcos Jr. says the unification of the nation is already off to a good start. Incoming Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez said that the divisiveness of the past election has already turned into unity after the camp of incumbent VP Leni Robredo offered no objections to the results of the polls. This is in stark contrast to the events following the 2016 elections, when the election of Robredo as vice president was met with several electoral protests from her rival and now President-elect Bongbong Marcos.
I think the unification process have begun yesterday, and I know you're covering it, when there was the Council of Vice President Leni Robredo manifested that they have no continuing objection to the canvassing of the votes. And I think, and you will agree with me, that that is a good start towards the unification process.
How well do you know Ferdinand Marcos Jr.? Now that he's the incoming president of the Philippines, let's find out more about him in this report by Marty Bautista.
Bongbong finally appeared. The most adorable, giggly, chubby baby you can imagine.
It was September 13, 1957 when Ferdinand Marcos Jr. was born, the second child and only son of then-late Congressman Ferdinand Marcos and beauty queen Imelda Romualdez.
I am Bongbong Marcos. When I grow up, I want to be a politician.
When he was 8 years old, Marcos Jr. acted as himself in a movie called Iginuhit ng Tadhana, a biopic of his father for the 1965 presidential elections. True to his words, he grew up and entered the world of politics at 23. In 1980, the younger Marcos was elected as vice governor of Ilocos Norte, then governor 3 years later. Known as Bunget to those close to him, Marcos Jr. is reported to be chill, easygoing, and loves music. In the last few hours of the Marcoses in Malacanang, he was seen wearing a military fatigue. Trained as a scout ranger, Marcos Jr. wanted to face the soldiers who were planning a coup d'etat against his father. After Marcos Sr.'s 21-year dictatorial rule, the family fled overseas in exile, and this is how the younger Marcos met his now wife, Lisa Araneta. Their relationship had a rocky start, as the Arenetas are against the Marcoses, but the pair still got married. In 1991, Marcos Jr. went back to the Philippines, making a controversial appearance in Chris Aquino's program.
Sa akin, sabi ko, bakit hindi? Sa wakas.
Oo naman, at magkumparet-kumare tayo.
It wasn't long after his return that he entered politics again, first as a governor of Ilocos, then second as congressman. He won as senator in 2010, the same time late martyr Senator Benigno Aquino and late former President Cory Aquino's only son, Ninoy Aquino, was elected as president. This was the Marcoses' first comeback in national politics. In 2016, he ran as vice president, but lost to incumbent Vice President Leni Robredo. They both had a rematch in this year's elections, but this time for the top seat, where Marcos Jr. won by a large margin, making him poised to be the Republic's 17th president. For News 5, Marty Bautista, We Are One News.
Now that another Marcos is officially set to become the next president of the country, will the People Power Revolution still be commemorated? The world remembers the 1986 EDSA revolution as a peaceful revolution that ousted a dictator and inspired several movements in other countries. Since then, February 25 has become an annual public holiday in the country, commemorating the historic event. But now that the son and namesake of this ousted dictator is returning to Malacanang, will the annual commemoration now come to a halt? Marcos Jr.'s aide and incoming Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez evaded the question.
Can the Marcos government assure the Filipino people that they can still commemorate the People Power Revolution next year?
I don't see any connection to what we just did today, getting the president-elect and the vice president-elect proclaimed, to what you're asking me now.
Sir, pero wala bang commitment na naibigay na sa 25 na, sir? Kaya sa harap yung setup natin.
Thank you.
Aside from the People Power Revolution, another thing that reminds Filipinos of its grim past is the PCGG, or the Presidential Commission on Good Government. The agency's primary mandate is to recover the ill-gotten wealth accumulated by Ferdinand Marcos Sr., his family, and their subordinates. From 1990 to 2020, the PCGG had raised a total of 120 billion pesos in additional revenues from the disposition of Marcos-related ill-gotten wealth. But now that Marcos Sr.'s son is president-elect, will the agency be able to continue operating? Here's what Marcos's camp had to say.
He has answered that many times as well. He will even, in fact, strengthen it if the condition would warrant, meaning law permitting. We have to review its how to further strengthen it as an anti-corruption instrument or tool.
Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s headquarters in Mandaluyong has been filled with supporters for almost 3 weeks now. And it got even more jam-packed as they welcomed this proclamation. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza has the story.
In the middle of bustling EDSA, groups in red and green continue to flock to the Marcos headquarters in Mandaluyong. Never mind the heat and hunger, supporters have been longing to get a glimpse of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Their fervor never wavered, ever since unofficial results showed their bet as the clear winner. Such is the case for Lolo Inigo, who traveled miles from Quezon. He was a former government employee under late dictator Ferdinand Marcos Sr. He hopes to get in touch with his former boss's son to get help.
Magkatrabaho yung aking mga anak, magkatrabaho ako kung po pwede pa para makasuporta ako sa aking maintenance.
Lola Melita says she also came to ask for help to reopen her own school, which closed due to the pandemic. Melly, on the other hand, claims she heard that Marcos Jr. will be giving out money.
Nadinig ko na namimigaw daw si BBM dito ng tulong na 10,000, sir. Ay ganito naman, wala pa pala.
But some supporters are more than happy to just show support, like Oscar, who apart from bringing his pictures with the Marcos family, carried with him a cassette tape which contains what he believes to be Marcos Jr.'s favorite songs.
At puro Beatles ang parang nasanay siya sa mga kantang mga Beatles eh.
Their reasons may vary from wanting to have even a glimpse of Marcos Jr., but they have a single hope. A better life in the next 6 years, a hope they hope will be realized under the new administration. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza, We Are One News.
Here are the stories to watch out for later today. COMELEC eyes to conduct the proclamation of the winning party lists today. Veteran actress Susan Roses will be laid to rest beside her husband, Fernando Poe Jr., at the Manila North Cemetery. And round 2 of the UAAP Season 84 women's volleyball begins. And that's how the day is shaping up to be. Join us again later at 9 a.m. as we monitor the day's biggest stories from sunrise to sundown. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We're One News.